My name is Diego because I want to open the mind.
My name is Renee, and I'm here because I want to know why things are the way they are.
Things are the way they are.
I'm Nana, and I just want to see how other people think.
I'm Marie, and I want to know everything.
Hi, my name's Patrick, and Marie said that this is like a fun club to come in and just sit down.
The best club
Definitely
ever.
so.
All right, I'm Kelly, and I think philosophy is super funsies, so that's why I'm here.
And it's Z's.
I'm Patty, it's my first time here, and I'm just curious about what you guys do and want to learn stuff.
Excellent. I'm David, and I just love philosophy straight down to it. So I think we can start now. Oh, and actually, you can also film yourself.
I'm Marjorie, and I adore philosophy too.
Oh, that's fantastic. Clap. And so initially, Kelly and I were thinking to put a lid on this before this becomes like an immoral discussion. But I'm Tish.
Woo!
That's Cujo.
Go
1,
film
2,
it.
3.
Cujo!
Alright, sounds good. And so just tell us your name and tell us why you're here.
You just said my name.
Tell us why you're here.
Because I've been here the past 2 times.
Okay, that's good. Habit.
Yeah, I go for like a Cal Ripken Jr. streak, so I'm just going to be here every time.
Okay. Classy. So we're going to try putting a lid on immortality again. So again, I'm just going to walk through points we've already talked about. And if you guys have anything else to say about it, then now would be a good time before we just kind of close it, period. So we've kind of touched on identity, which is material-immaterial distinction. We've talked about the identity paradox of like what happens if we construe immortality strictly within just material, basically all. If there's no such thing as the mind and all it is just your body, smaller constituents and things, if you cut off a piece and that piece is supposed to be you, then you're faced with the paradox, well, half of you is dead and half of you is alive, so how do you reconcile that? We've talked about ideas about like how people could live on immortally through their books, how writings, we understand Plato and other authors, they live on through writings and things. And for a big portion of the meeting, for the first and the second meeting, we talked about it just being frankly boring. And also Cujo gave us another side of it, taking the strident, self-fulfilling thing by which by way of being the best you can be for those who don't share your capabilities, mere mortals. Basically, the pro side for immortality. And finally, the ideal immortality with the presupposition of living to be like an ideal age. Like let's just assume hypothetically that we can start immortality at the point of like your 20s, the max peak where it's just everything's bliss. Anyway, so if anybody has any additional topics or wants to expand on that, now is the time, like right now. So let it kind of simmer a little bit.
Anyone seen the Twilight Zone episodes that relate to immortality?
Twilight Zone, no.
I recall one that this man makes a deal with the devil for immortality, and he gets bored. He realizes one day accidentally gets hit by a car and he doesn't get hurt. So then he starts jumping in front of trains, jumping in front of buses, and jumping off buildings to collect insurance money. And eventually he decides he's gonna jump off the building. And I may be fuzzy on this. It's been a while since I watched it, but his wife is trying to stop him or something, and she gets thrown off the roof, and she dies. And so he thinks, hey, I haven't tried the electric chair yet. Let's try that. So he calls the police and he pleads guilty, and his expectation is he's going to try this cool new thing of the electric chair and he's going to survive it. Ends up getting life in prison without parole. So it didn't work out for him, as it often doesn't in the Twilight Zone.
Was he able to feel pain in these sorts of things?
I don't think he did. And so he basically had this eternity to do stuff, and he was trying to figure out, basically seeking out thrills that he wouldn't have done otherwise. But in the end, with an infinite amount of time, he went through them all.
So I guess the only pain is really boredom in that sort of view. Anybody else with any ideas of immortality, like additional thoughts or comments about it?
This is only against mortality, right?
Oh no, it's the full spectrum.
Because I saw most of this is against. What about repeatable pleasures?
Like masturbation.
Oh yeah, we talked about masturbating for eternity.
Yeah,
So.
we did talk about that last. That was last time. Yeah, you missed a good one last time. Although I just feel like I should point out that something that you already alluded to. The only reason it got boring was because he was seeking. I wouldn't even call them pleasures. Just thrills, cheap thrills, I guess, for lack of a better term. And those things like getting drunk, like I don't know, riding down the highway with your headlights off at 100 miles an hour. Those things have some sort of dangerous pleasure that could be fulfilled, or fulfilling, I guess, for 10 seconds, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever. But these are all drops in the bucket of an ocean, one giant bucket of an ocean. If you have immortality, if you can't die, then these things are just going to fade away pretty quickly. So if you are going to be immortal, it seems to behoove you to try and live a little bit more of a meaningful or substantial life, if that's at all possible. But he didn't do that, and he paid the Twilight's own price for it.
How can there be physical immortality?
Physical immortality?
You're seeing that, right? It's physical? Because the universe itself is going to end one day. Like, the universe is not eternal. So, because of the scientific discoveries of the Big Bang and that there's a beginning of the universe, so it must have logically an end.
Well, I think here's where a lot of philosophers there's a lot of room for, I guess, disagreement. Take, for example, the first cause argument where you're saying where the universe began because we have empirical scientific evidence that there was a beginning. There are some philosophers that will disagree with that premise, and they'll say that the universe could very well be eternal, and it could be infinity is the nature of the universe despite all of the observations we've recorded. So.
Well, they're not really observations, they're like theoretical insights.
Sure.
Yeah, but they also have the oscillation theory.
Yeah, even if that's true, think about
and
relative immortality. So you're immortal in relation to everyone else around you. So if I outlive all of you, even if I don't live for hundreds or thousands of years, if I just say you all die tomorrow and I live for another week, well, in relation to you, I have lived longer and am in some respect immortal. You stretch that out over a long enough timeline, say you live for 80 years, 100 years, 200 years, and I live for another 800 years. Well, by all accounts and estimations, if there is no one else to watch me die, then I am immortal in some respect. So it doesn't have to be necessarily true physical immortality, so much as I just have to outlast you, which is what we're discussing. Whether or not you're the only person left alive after everyone else just turns to dust. So that make any more sense? Is that a little easier to swallow?
Yeah.
Certainly changes things.
Yeah.
That's really everybody's entitled to their own idea of immortality. This is you're tackling from a pure, just physical, from what I understand, just a physical point of view of what constitutes immortality from like bodily constituents that would equal the definition of death, thereby denying that being immortal in that sense. And I think Chris just refuted that with, well, you don't have to be.
Relative immortality.
Yeah, I don't know if I refuted it. I just offered another alternative.
Yeah,
sure.
It's not "fuck you, you're wrong." It's just
Yeah.
hey, how about this?
Yeah, it's perception and relative
Yeah,
mortality,
yeah.
kind of like relative perfection, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, there's sort of that idea that like, well, even if we, damn, I'm looking for a word and it's not coming.
We love that.
When you're trying to conjure like an idea of God